Hello, and welcome to the Student Ministry Conversations podcast with your hosts, Russell Martin and Brent Aiken. This podcast is all about equipping, encouraging, and inspiring youth pastors weekly with topics that are brought to the table by youth pastors from all over the world. And now, here's your host for this week, Brent Aiken.
Hey, and welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time listening to us, we want to welcome you and invite you over to our website, studentministryconversations.org, where you can find all of our previous episodes, show notes, blog articles, and much more. Our goal is that you're inspired, encouraged, and the things that you hear on this podcast can equip you to be a better student pastor for the church that you are serving in. And so today we are sitting down with Travis Deans. He is the Northeast Regional Coordinator for the National Network of Youth Ministry, or Youth Ministries. And without telling too much of his story, Travis, let's start off by just you telling us about who you are, where you're from, family, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's great to be with you. Thank you, Brent. It's great to hang out with everyone today. And so I actually live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and been in ministry 26 years now. I graduated from Moody Bible Institute in Chicago back in the 90s, and got a wife and 4 children, and they keep us hopping, that's for sure. And my story is I started out in a parachurch ministry. It was a former chapter of Youth for Christ. I was doing that and then became a part-time youth pastor at a Christian Missionary Alliance church, and was there for 15 years. And so, have experience in the local church and parachurch. But then somewhere around the year 2000, I went to a conference and discovered the National Network of Youth Ministries and thought, hey, I need to be part of this thing. And so I've actually been part of the National Network for 20 years now, but just recently came on staff with them 2 years ago as the Northeast Regional Coordinator. And so yeah, I've been in youth ministry a while, seen a lot, things come and go. And anyway, it's been a good ride. God has been good, and it's looking forward to seeing what God's going to do in the future.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I was talking with you before the show. I've done my fair share of networking and done as much as I can locally to kind of build this community of kind of mindset of youth pastors in our area. And when you reached out to be on the show, I hadn't heard of the National Network of Youth Ministries. And so that was definitely a cool find, but it also brings us to the point of our conversation today, and that is the importance of networking. And so without kind of beating around the bush, what is the importance of networking in student ministry?
Well, we all know the stories of, how short-lived most youth pastor careers are. And there's some debate about, there was, for a long time, there was the 18 months, most youth pastors last 18 months. And some people say, no, it's actually 3 years. And whatever it is, we know that, in a lot of cases, youth pastors come and go with some frequency. And so the importance of networking primarily is that when you are connected with others, especially in personal, face-to-face, we can sit down and eat lunch together relationships, you just last longer in youth ministry. Josh Griffin, who probably most of us know from Download Youth Ministry, he did kind of an anecdotal poll a few years ago, and he was like, hey, how long have you been in ministry? What do you attribute that to? What's helped you? And without fail, those who were connected with others near them lasted longer, sometimes 2 to 3 times longer. And there's several reasons for that, I think. But if you want to last for a while in ministry, period, whatever role you're in, you need to have strong connections. So that's really, we want to encourage youth pastors, don't do ministry alone.
Yeah, definitely. And so, I totally agree. Networking is super important. I've had my fair share of, regardless of what church I've done, We've had a bunch of different opportunities to network, and I've said this on the podcast a couple of times. Really, one of my first outreaches for networking wasn't even networking in my mind. I guess it was just this one. I was in a church. I was in a community that I was new to. We didn't know anybody. The first year and a half was rocky. And I got on one of the youth pastor Facebook groups, and I was just like, hey man, does anybody want to just get on a Google Hangout? Which I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. But do you want to get on a Google Hangout and just talk about life, talk about family, talk about ministry? And that turned into like a weekly Google Hangout for multiple months, multiple years, to where we did it every single Thursday. And then after that, I still am in a Facebook group with probably 12 of those guys that we connected with over that course of time. And we still talk to this day. Most of them there's a few of them that are still youth pastors. There's some that have moved on to pastoral ministry. There's some that have backed out of a professional ministry in church, and now they are teachers or other things, but we still have that relationship and that bond.
That's awesome.
And I kind of, without hopefully answering your side of this, but I see the importance and I see the necessity, but how can networking with other youth pastors help with the loneliness that often comes from the youth ministry job, especially when you're in smaller communities?
Yeah, well, so, the internet has made it possible, as you just described, has made it possible to connect with people in ways that are extremely helpful. I was talking with a youth pastor from Uganda back in the spring. I'm like, this is crazy. This is amazing. Technology has opened doors that are just incredible. But there's just something really important. There's something really beneficial to having a face-to-face conversation. Of course, we can do that through the internet now, but also, being able to call somebody up and say, hey, can we have breakfast? Can we have lunch? Can we meet together? Because there's things that you can say in person. There's just things that, especially you get together over a meal or whatever, there's just conversation that happens that's just so beneficial. And I think for a lot of us, especially those of us who are starting out in ministry, I remember this, you start out and like you said, things get rocky or unexpected things happen, and you're like, what's going on here? And it's, if you're new in ministry, or if you're new to a situation, you might think, man, I'm the only one going through this. I don't know what to do. I don't think I can do this. I'm in trouble here. But then you sit down with somebody who's been in it for a little while, and you realize, oh, I'm not the only one who's been through this situation. I'm not the only one who's faced these kind of circumstances. Other people have gone through this and come out the other side. I think that's one of the huge benefits of networking, is to realize that whatever challenges you're facing, whatever difficulties you might be going through, you're for sure not the only one who's gone through those. And so finding people that can encourage you to press onward is so helpful. Now, sometimes people get in a situation and there's just no remedy, right? Sometimes, unfortunately, leaving a position or a situation is the only solution. But I think very often, especially for those that are younger, it's just a matter of pressing through and allowing God to work, because sometimes the challenges we're facing, sometimes the difficulties we're going through, are God's way of hammering away at our character and hammering away at, shaping and forming us spiritually. And it doesn't feel good all the time, right? Growing in ministry, growing as a Christ follower, it doesn't always feel great when God is hammering away at the flaws and imperfections in our lives. And so being in community with others in ministry can help you have that perspective, right? And so I would argue, whether you're in a small community or whether you're in a large church, being connected is so important. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a guy who, he was in the biggest church in town, and our network was meeting, and it was we'd invite him to come, and he wouldn't come because he was at the big church. He didn't need a network. He had everybody. I don't know what happened. Something happened, and he started coming to our meetings. After 15 years, his church asked him to step down and leave, and they didn't acknowledge anything like that. He had been there 15 years. They didn't acknowledge his time serving the church. our network gave him a certificate, and we were like, congratulations on 15 years of ministry. Now this was like probably 20 years ago. He told me the other day, he said, I still have that certificate hanging on my wall.
That's awesome.
You guys acknowledged my time serving that church ministry, and my own church didn't even do it. So I would argue, whether you're from a large church or a small church, having a community of youth workers that you're connected with is invaluable. And not only for lasting longer and staying in ministry longer, but also for being more effective in ministry, because there are things that you can do as a youth worker, but you can do them better and bigger if you do it together with others in your community. We had a guy once who wanted to do a back to school event, and he had this amazing plan. He was like, I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about this and this, and he's like, but my church is too small. I don't think I can do it at my church. So we got together with the other youth workers in town, and the guy who was at the biggest church in town, he's like, yeah, we'll host it. And so it became this big back to school event, which is actually still going 17 years later. But it was a thing where, he had this idea, but he couldn't pull it off on his own. But he got together with the other youth pastors in town, and it's been amazing. They've had as many as 1,000 students, come out to this event every year. And so it's, to last longer and to be more effective, you can't beat being connected with people who are near you in your community.
Yeah, without a doubt. And the thing is, I mean, it's you can get on, like I said, there's a lot of times we push people towards the youth pastor Facebook groups and stuff like that. But at sometimes, I don't know if that helps the loneliness factor. Yeah. Because you feel like a really, really small fish in a big pond, and especially wherever you're located. And sometimes you hear these people, you also fall big time to the comparison game and the entrapment of that and not being content. And sometimes those larger groups, while they do have great benefit and great resources that go through there and great ideas, sometimes it's not great for the person that's really, really seeking out that personal connection of wanting someone that they can, like you said, go have coffee with or go eat lunch or something to that nature, because they see all the success that everybody else is doing, and they might be going through a struggle, and they're like, I don't really feel like I'm doing a great job here because everybody else seems like they're succeeding, when in all reality, it's just the social media mindset of like, hey, let me show you all the good things and hide all the bad ones.
Well, there's the aspect of, because there's some things you can't talk about with people in your church, right? There's situations you're like, this is going on, but I don't know who to talk to about this because it's volatile. It's, but with a group of youth pastors who have your interest in mind and who care about your heart and care about who you are as a person, man, you can share some things that you can't share other places, and get some perspective, because you might have somebody in your community who they know what's going on at your church in the past, right? Because they've been around a while, so they that's not always the case, but very often I've seen that happen enough times that very often they'll know, like, okay, just hang in there, you're going to get through this, or well, here's what you need to do because here's what happened to the last guy. I mean, just to be real and honest. So there's definitely, there's just something to be said for being able to have conversations outside of your church context. And those Facebook groups are helpful in a lot of ways. But yeah, you just to be able to have that face to face, man, and someone who sees you, who knows you, who can hear your, when you hear somebody's heart in a personal way, it's a whole different thing, right? And so anyway, you know what I mean?
No, I totally agree. And the thing is the most of the people and most of the youth pastors that I've had face-to-face interaction with, I am far more prone to following up with them even when they leave town. Because it's one of those things, like, you can't beat, like you said, the face-to-face personal connection of meeting and having that opportunity to share life together, to share struggles, to share victories. When you have a community of youth pastors that come together, I mean, basically you have a support system. And a lot of times, just like every other ministry, when you get into a specific set of ministry, you really don't feel like you can talk about it with other people because not many other people understand. Not many other people do, or you have, and not to disgrace any pastors that might be listening to this, or you have the pastor that's like, well, 20 years ago when I did youth ministry, and it's like, well, that's great. I appreciate your insight, but like, I need to talk to someone that's like dealing with this now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Youth ministry has changed a lot over the years.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's more complex than it ever was, I think.
Yeah. So when this records, our previous episode before this one was Dan Carson, and he talks about being a lifelong learner. And he was like, I've been in youth ministry for 30 years now. He was like, I could not begin to start trying to do what I did 30 years ago to do today. He was like, it's a completely different world that we live in.
Yeah.
And so it's important to have connections that are relevant, that are current, and build the support system that you have. And so other than being obviously support system, we've kind of talked about this, but is there any other benefit that a youth pastor can see from getting involved in networking? And we'll attack this from two sides, both from a personal perspective,
yep,
and from a ministry perspective.
Sure. Well, I mean, one of the things that we encourage youth pastors, to, if you're in a network, we encourage you to do four things: praying for each other, right? There's nothing like having another youth pastor pray for you, because they can pray for you in a way that no one else can pray for you, because they understand the struggles, and they understand the victories that you want to celebrate. Nobody can pray for you quite like another youth pastor can. But so praying for each other, building relationships, friendships, and sharing resources, right? Very often you'll be like, man, I need something new. I'm looking for something fresh. And you'll be in a conversation. Like, oh, what about this? Have you tried this resource, that resource? Oh, I didn't know about that, and so sharing resources is huge. And, in the past, it used to be sharing books and videos and stuff like that, which, everything's online now, but just, hey, go to YouTube, check out this video, check out this website, check out this app, whatever it is, sharing those resources is a huge thing, because, let's face it, sometimes we get our creativity dries up a little bit. We're like, I just need something new, right? And so having those other minds around you, hey, we tried this, here's how it went, here's what happened. Or maybe you're like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? Well, we tried that and it wasn't so great. Here's why. Here's why maybe it didn't work for us. So prayer, relationships, resources, and then the third thing is fourth thing we call strategy. And that is figuring out, hey, are there any things that we could do together that make sense? Are there any things that would be helpful? So I'll give you two examples that I think are really cool. We had one network we've had networks do a lot of events together, and that's been exciting. Usually network events they either do one of two things. Either they reinforce, something that everyone in the network wants to teach and encourage their kids, praying for their friends, walking with God closely, digging into scripture, just general things that we all want to help our kids do. Events usually reinforce those things, or they're typically, evangelistic in nature. Hey, let's do something that we can work together to share the gospel with students in our city, in our community. So I've seen a lot of those kind of things, and I've seen a lot of them that work very well. In fact, I would say 99% of the time I've seen network events go extremely well and be extremely beneficial. But two examples here. We had one network that they made an appointment to go and meet with the local high school principal. And so they're like, hey, we're youth pastors in the community. Could we come and talk with you? We want to learn from your perspective what's happening with students in our community. You spend all this time with students, you know them better than we do. Can you talk to us about what's happening? And so they met with this high school principal, and she was great. It was such a good time. She spent probably an hour with them, just describing what's happening with students in the school. And she was talking about students who are falling through the cracks. She was talking about issues with drugs. She was talking about things that the school is struggling with. It was funny because she mentioned that she's like, man, I wish that kids would go back to smoking marijuana because that was so much easier to deal with than what they're doing now. Right? Yeah. Because
Wow.
they're stealing their grandparents' pain medication, and
Jeez.
yeah, all kind of, we didn't expect to hear that. And so then we ended the time with saying, well, is there anything we can do to serve you or to serve the school district? And so they ended up, she was like, well, we really need chaperones for the prom. She said it's a really a strain on our teachers to be up all night and for the post prom. And she said, if you guys could help with that, that'd be amazing. And so we did that for a couple of years, which was eye opening in a lot of ways. But it was just, and I've seen several times where youth pastors have met with a local school principal, and the conversation has been extremely just insightful and helpful, and just a different perspective than what you get looking at your own students in your own building. One more example I'll share is I was talking with a youth pastor in Denver back in the spring, and she was telling me that they were curious how many students are in the schools around them. So, the schools that their students go to, she's like, I wonder how many students go to those schools. So they called the schools, hey, how many students do you have enrolled, high school and the middle school? They found out that in their high schools and middle schools, right around their church, there were 14,000 students. And that really rang a bell for them because in Colorado, 14,000, that's the height of a lot of the mountains that they climb, right? They you have all these 14ers, that people climb, and so they made a logo, pray for the 14,000. And then they called up other youth pastors around them and said, hey, there are 14,000 students in our immediate area right here. Can we start getting together and praying for them and talking about, is there anything we can do to reach them? And so, they're kind of in the beginning of that process, but, she told me that story and I'm like, that's awesome. I love that because it's that bigger picture, right? God has put you in a local church, but God has also put you in a community, and that community needs your local church, but that community also needs every local church, because no single church, even the big ones, no single church is going to reach every student in a community. If you have 100 or 200 students in your youth ministry, that's awesome, but you're still not reaching every student in that community, not by a long shot. And so, we need each other to reach the students around us. And not only other churches, but parachurch ministries. There's a lot of partnership and relationship, positive relationship that can happen there. And so there's a ton of benefit on that personal and ministry level that you mentioned.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just for the listeners, one more time, would you go over those 4 things?
Yeah, sure. So prayer, relationships, resources, and strategy. Those are the 4 things that we hope that networking will bring to you as a youth worker.
Well, and I think that's really, really important for, obviously multiple reasons, like you just said, but I love that you brought up, like, there's nobody that can pray for a youth pastor better than another youth pastor. Because it's really one of those things, like, when you start praying for another youth pastor, you've been in their shoes, know what they're dealing with, you can more than likely empathize with their struggle. And it's a different perspective than a lot of people. And then, like you said, also that a lot of people don't really feel comfortable talking about all their issues with the rest of the church, or with you can't go vent to parents of youth students.
Nope.
Because that's not going to work either. And so really a lot of times you find to where you don't have anywhere that is a safe sounding board for you to have these conversations of whether they're frustration or whether they're trying to struggle through something that you're dealing with, or sometimes just successes. We sometimes we have successes and we're like, man, this was so great. Like I had this connection
And nobody
and
gets it.
yeah, and you tell it to someone else and they're like, yay. I mean, like, woo, I don't really
Right.
understand why this is such a big deal. But the importance of having those other people that are in the trenches doing the same thing you're doing, it's super, super important. And so that
Celebrating those
is,
victories is just as important as solving the problems, right?
yeah,
Celebrating those victories. If you don't celebrate your victories with somebody, you're going to get discouraged. Celebrating those
yeah,
victories encourages you to keep going and encourages you to overcome the challenges because, man, God did do something. We might be having a hard time here, but God did something awesome here. And so having
yeah.
people that get that, man, that's huge.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things. I mean, it's super, super important. It's not only beneficial to your personal health, because the
Yeah,
thing is we need people.
yeah,
You need to be able to talk to people. You need to be able to have people that can relate to you. And then a lot of times, a lot of youth pastors are friends with each other because youth pastors often find similarities in liking the same things and
oh
disliking the
yeah,
same things.
yeah,
And so it's also just building a friend group on top of that. So especially when you're moving into a new area or a new region that you haven't ever really lived in and you don't have any
yeah,
connections, like that's a great place to start. Um,
absolutely.
and then also ministry related, like you said, there are so many different things that are great benefits to just having that connection with other youth pastors from, hey, that's a really bad idea. Don't do that. I just saved your life. Or like, or hey, like I haven't tried that either. Let's do this together. I love the story that you said about all the youth pastors coming together and meeting with the principal. That was super, super cool.
Yeah.
Um, and
One
so,
other thing that's really helpful is if you're new to town, right? You don't know where are the local camps and good places to do a retreat. Who are the local people that are great speakers? Are there worship bands around here that are really good that I could bring in? What are because there's tons of local resources that if you're the new person in town that you don't know about, and somebody that you're meeting with, they could be like, yeah, this Christian counselor, I recommend them all the time. This worship band, they're incredible. This retreat center, they'll give you an incredible deal. Like those kind of
yeah.
resources are incredibly helpful too. And again, that's why it's important to network with people near you because they're going to know what's right there in your community that's going to be really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And so as we're kind of transitioning through this conversation, what is the National Network of Youth Ministries? You said it's been around for a while. You've known about it since 2000. So obviously, I mean, it's been 20 years, 22 years. It's been a while.
Yeah.
So what is the National Network of Youth Ministries and how can a youth pastor get involved?
Sure. So, the National Network started with a group of youth pastors who came together in Colorado back in I think 1979 or 80, I think. And they were like, hey, we need to do this together. We can't just be isolated islands out there on our own. And so they formed this organization to help encourage youth workers to connect, and not only on the local and personal level, but also on the national level. And so National Network has been involved in helping youth ministry organizations all over the country connect with each other. In fact, each May, there's a gathering called the Youth Ministry Executive Council where presidents of youth ministry organizations and student ministry directors from denominations come together. And so they get to know each other on a national level, but really more importantly, the thing that's really our bread and butter is helping youth workers connect with each other locally. And so we have 30 some staff that are all over the country. In fact, really every part of the country. And our main thing is we just want to help youth workers find and build those connections that they can, for as long as you're in youth ministry, you have other people near you that are encouraging you, that are building you up. And so one thing that National Network that is known for that most people would know is National Network is the primary promoter of See You at the Pole. So that's probably the thing that people outside of the national network know us for. But we we just want to encourage youth pastors, listen, get connected. And on our website, youthworkers.net, there's a map of the United States, and you can click on your state and find all of the networks that are in your state and connect with somebody near you. And if there's not a network near you, we would love to help you start one. For somebody who, I know that we're all busy, but if there's not a network near you, I'm telling you, starting a network and organizing that is such a blessing to the person who does it, because you bring these people together, and there is a reward in that, in initiating and building and providing that place to come together. It's really good. I have seen it happen so many times, and the guys who lead networks that I know, they love it, and it is encouraging to them. It's so worth it. I know it's another thing on your plate, but it is so worth doing.
Yeah, and like I said, I did not know about National Network of Youth Ministries. I am personally going to sign up, since we do not have one in our local community. And I kind of already do a local community of youth pastors. And we do a community youth pastor lunch where we meet regularly, youth pastors from all over. And a lot of the smaller towns around us also come and join us in for that as well. And so it's super important. We see the benefit of that. And I'm looking forward to getting involved and signed up for that as well. So outside of this conversation, do you have any other resources about networking or opportunities where they can go and get help, or anything else you'd want to share resource wise?
Well, we have a podcast called the Free Refills Podcast, which you can find wherever you listen to podcasts. That's National Network produces that. You can connect with us on our website. We don't really we don't provide curriculum per se, although we do have discussion guides that if you're meeting with a group of youth pastors and you don't know what to talk about, we have discussion guides that can help you. Hey, let's talk about this, and here's some questions that you can use to facilitate conversation. But really, we're really all about relationships. We're not a curriculum company. We're not a book company. We're not a conference company. We are a relationship organization. And so, going on our website and connecting with, finding the regional coordinator or the state coordinator or your local coordinator near you. That's what we want to offer people the most. We want to offer them connections with people near them. And so we have a YouTube and a Facebook that you can connect with as well, of course. We do have these Zoom conversations that are really helpful. I want to mention that because I forget if it's once a month or every other month. It might be every other month. We do a conversation. We choose a topic, and we usually have a guest speaker, and it's about an hour long, and it's just a Zoom conversation with youth pastors, youth workers from around the country. And you just get on and somebody presents 10, 15, 20 minutes on a topic, and then we break out in small groups and talk about that. And so we just call that network conversations. If you go to Eventbrite and search for National Network of Youth Ministries, you'll find network conversations, and those have been great. That's a newer thing that we're doing, but it's been since everybody knows how to use Zoom now. Thank you, COVID. Everyone knows how to use Zoom, right? So it's a great opportunity to just have some quick conversation about different things. We did a conversation last month about racial reconciliation and that kind of stuff, and it was so good. It was really, really helpful. So that's out there as well.
That's awesome. And then finally, how can people connect with you on social media if they want to reach out to you specifically?
Yeah. If you just look up, I'm facebook.com/Travis Deans. And my Twitter is tdeans. And you can find me there. Also on Instagram, Travis Deans. But My email is tdeans@nnym.org. Would be happy to, if you're out there and if you're looking for a network or you're looking for to start one, I'd be happy to send you to the person nearest you that could help you with that. Our staff people would love to connect with you, and so I'd be happy to help you connect with somebody that's in your area. And if yeah, there you go.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, like I said, I'm looking forward to you connecting me to the guy that's closest to my area, which probably is the DFW area. But excited to get that conversation rolling to where we can get ours started as well. And so, Travis, man, thank you for coming on the show. But that is all the time that we have for today's show. Just a few things before we close. Did you know that you can now support our podcast by becoming a Patreon member? You can go to patreon.com/talkstudentmen, and you can check out how to sponsor our show, as well as the different perks that come with being a subscriber. If you can't support us financially, that's totally fine. We don't need it to run by any means. But we do ask that you can still do your part by getting our podcast out to the greater student ministry audience. Share our podcast with your youth pastor friends on social media, or tag a specific episode that really stuck out to you. Either way, just be sure to tag us in that post on your favorite social media platform with our handle @TalkStudentMen. And then finally, if you'd like to be on our show in the future, reach out to us on social media or send us an email, podcast@studentministryconversations.org. And we'd love to set up a time where you can come on the show. Travis, once again, man, this conversation was awesome. Love the concept, love the idea of getting more people involved and included in networking, as it's such an important thing. It's a great topic, and we are super excited for listeners to hear this one. And for everybody listening, we hope that you have a great week, and we will see you next time.